Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to welcome all of you to this afternoon's call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time, and those over the next 24 to 48 hours that will be listening to our replay. We're happy to have you. We like to move quickly through our call, bottom line the information for you. We know you're busy people. You have other things to do. We have a standard format. We spend a few minutes talking about the revaluation of the dinar, which we believe to be the base currency for these other currencies. We spend a few minutes talking about the program we've put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started. First, talk a little bit about the situation as it plays out in Iraq. By way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of these currencies. We're not advocating either the purchase or the sale of these currencies, but we share this information with you as rather substantial currency holders ourselves. We're looking at a window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, in my opinion, somewhere between the next 30 and 60 days. A lot's been going on in the last 7 to 10 days, and we're going to touch on it. First, in country in Iraq politically. Actually, let me step back for a second. There is something that of an indirect nature that is going to be helpful to us, and that is the final resolution in this country of the Mueller investigation and report. Now that that is, for the most part, behind the administration, they can put some other things back on the front burner. One of those issues has to do with the containment of Iran now that ISIS has been dealt with. And we must look at the containment of Iran through the prism of Iraq. Now, what's going on in Iraq? The Prime Minister Mahdi has still one unfilled ministerial seat. That's the seat of the Minister of Interior. There has been some disagreement over the last couple of months with the parliament, with his nominee. The reason this particular seat is important is because it overlaps into a lot of other areas, including currencies and the growth of the private sector economy. Mahdi's nominee, Al-Fayyad, has withdrawn his nomination, and it is expected that the individuals that Mahdi has named as potential nominees are all acceptable to the parliament. If that's the case, that seat could be filled as early as within a week, and that is the last remaining issue having to do with the formation of the new government. So that's very good news. In the area of currency reforms, the CBI and the Parliamentary Finance Committee have been working together to facilitate the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, which of course would require the deletion of the zeros. They have set a tentative target date for accomplishing all of this as May 1st, which is a little over 30 days from now. Now, as we all know, particularly those of us that have had currencies for any length of time, nothing ever gets done in Iraq within the time frames and the parameters that they establish. So since they have established a 30-day parameter, my view is we're looking at 30 to 60 days for this to be accomplished. Now, one of the issues, as I said, is the deletion of the zeros. The CBI has announced that the deletion of the zeros will take place and is obviously a prerequisite for the reinstitution of their currency. They've cited two issues having to do with that announcement. First, that they believe that the CBI believes that they have collected a sufficient percentage of the 3-0 provisional currency, something like 97 or 98% of it. And the other issue is that the expulsion of ISIS from the Anbar province and Iraq proper, and it's basically been eviscerated even in Syria, means that they do not believe that ISIS any longer poses a serious threat, and that whatever provisional currency they may have is irrelevant because they're not going to be able to fund a caliphate which no longer exists. The other thing the CBI has done, it has announced its rather draconian penalties for the attempt to create counterfeit currencies. There are severe penalties for the attempt to produce or producing counterfeit currencies. There are severe penalties for promoting or in any way involved in the production of counterfeit currencies or coinage. There are severe penalties for the dissemination of counterfeit currencies and coinage. And there are even severe penalties for being knowingly in possession of counterfeit currencies or coinage. So it looks as though Iraq has basically resolved all of the issues that were an impediment to the reinstitution of their currency. Now, that being the case, we truly are running out of time to get our affairs in order. Many individuals do not have their affairs in order, may not even understand what that might involve. To that end, Trusts Unlimited has put a turnkey program in place to assist you. It's a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a pre-RV package of asset protection trusts with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust product. Phase 2 involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of these currencies. So let's start with Phase 1, which is the establishment, again, of your pre-RV package of asset protection trusts and the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust package. Very simply, a trust is a legal instrument that one can establish to hold, to manage, and to protect assets. Trusts can fall into basic categories. For example, a trust can be revocable or a trust can be irrevocable. Now, over the course of the 7 years that I've been involved with Trusts Unlimited, we have received a lot of information regarding a lot of different entities that people choose to utilize in an attempt to protect these currencies in the anticipation of their revaluation. Individuals have established sub-S corporations and limited liability companies, LLCs, and the word there is significant, limited liability. These types of structures and entities are established for business purposes. They do provide some asset protection, but not the asset protection you're going to need and want. As a matter of fact, many jurisdictions have determined that if an LLC or a sub-S corporation, if 51% of those entities are owned by one person or a closely held small group, that entity can be pierced for civil litigation, nor can the holdings within that entity be sealed and withheld from the general public. So these entities are not going to be appropriate if you want absolute asset protection. Over the course of the last 7 years, we have been presented with a number of competitors' trust products, and I'm not going to be diplomatic about it. Most of the stuff that we've seen is absolute junk, and some of it costs twice what our trust product costs. The other problem with single trust products is that all of your assets are in one trust, meaning that if any of those assets are involved in civil proceedings, because those assets also involve ownership of all of your other assets, your entire net worth could be involved in the civil proceeding. Our trust avoids that. A lot of individuals have established something called a revocable trust. I myself had a revocable trust. A revocable trust is a trust that one establishes in order to circumvent the probate process, and also in certain cases, if the trust is established properly, to double your federal estate tax exemption. But these trusts provide no privacy and no asset protection. We've established a trust package utilizing the spendthrift or asset protection provisions of Wyoming for very specific reasons. I'm going to get into those in a little bit more detail, but I just want to touch on two things quickly. By establishing a package of trusts, you are segregating your assets and you're limiting substantially any potential civil liability you face. And second, Our trust package utilizes the provisions of the state of Wyoming for one very important reason. Section 4-10-515 of the Wyoming Trust Code allows the retroactive to the point of inception redomicile of your trust in Wyoming. Because this is a common law trust package, it's valid and operational in all 50 states. But if you're being sued, it's retroactively domiciled in Wyoming, where you take great advantage of their asset protection benefits. Now, most sophisticated trusts, whether they're package trusts or individual trusts, have what is known as a flight provision, allowing the settlor, the creator of the trust, to move the trust to some other jurisdiction where they can protect their assets. Here's the problem. Most jurisdictions will say, we will disallow the flight provision of your trust because it requires that you take an affirmative action after a civil proceeding has been filed or a civil suit. However, with our trust, the contract retroactively, pursuant to Wyoming law, retroactively transfers the trust to Wyoming. Therefore, you have not taken any affirmative act in the event of a legal suit. As a matter of fact, the only affirmative act you could take would be to try to stop the retroactive redomicile of the trust to Wyoming. So you will be able to successfully transfer the trust to Wyoming, where we believe this provides the best asset protection available. And I'll say it again, in the 7 years I've been working with Trusts Unlimited, we have been presented with dozens upon dozens of trusts. I've seen absolutely nothing which comes even close to this trust product. Now, as I said, this trust must be established prior to the revaluation of these currencies for the following reasons. First, by establishing this trust package, you will preserve your privacy and your anonymity. That's because assets held within an irrevocable trust are sealed, and the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing our trust package pre-RV, you will avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you're holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computer will most likely spit out an audit. But with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit will be time-consuming, it will be frustrating, and frankly, it would probably cost you more than our asset protection trust package. On the other hand, if your trust package is in place pre-RV and your currencies are assigned to that trust package, you have successfully transferred the taxable event of the revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, this is important for a couple of reasons. First, there's less than a 10% chance of an audit if this revaluation occurs within the trust. But second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV trust package is if you plan on gifting currencies to family and friends in certain situations. Philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to gift currencies prior to their evaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves or giving them the lump sum after you have conducted the exchange, that can be done outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV USD, then you can gift to them through a specially created gift subtrust within our package. By gifting through this subtrust, not only will their U.S. dollars be protected along with yours, but the language of this subtrust allows you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies, meaning you can give these individuals the exact U.S. dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. And in addition, because these currencies are held within this gift subtrust, you will be able to manage, to invest and distribute those funds to these individuals as you deem appropriate. This can only be accomplished through utilizing the gift subtrust in our trust package. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you two quick scenarios. Scenario number one, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The next day, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs in a state of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with the probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax, the tax that the federal government will assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. This is an unacceptable liability that you can avoid. Scenario number two, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving that same estate of $25 million to your heirs with one exception. That estate is now within our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate, there will be no public disclosure of your estate, your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV asset protection trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits, one pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to avoid something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. What does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. Those currencies subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust is structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive, extremely time-consuming, and virtually impossible to prevail in a civil suit. Secondly, and most important, once this prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win, even if they were to prevail in a civil proceeding, would be the pre-RV value of $5,000, the value of the property at the time you transferred it to the trust, and none of the post-RV value of... Excuse me, someone got in on my call here, and I'm going to have to delete that. Again, as I was saying, a prospective plaintiff could only win the pre-RV value of $5,000, the value of the property at the time you transferred it to the trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million. There will, of course, be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This will protect you from bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. And this protection has been accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets. This is why we've established a package of trusts, and this is how it would work. Once again, I'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to the trust. They revalue for 25 million. Now that you have 25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust. Now, why is this important from an asset protection standpoint? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other assets are safely protected in other subtrusts. Now, why are those assets protected in those other subtrusts? Because under the law, those separate subtrusts are separate legal entities, and the plaintiff would have no standing to pursue a separate legal entity not legally associated with the car or the owner of the car. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your package of irrevocable trusts prior to the revaluation of these currencies, and you are clearly running out of time. There is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, the holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in all the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. I'll just make mention of one here this afternoon. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the funding and management of your trust packages. Many of our existing clients have expressed desires to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is by transferring funds directly from your asset protection trust to these newly formed entities. We'll also have our tax specialists there. Our offshore specialists will show you that by establishing offshore title of certain assets, you can substantially reduce and in some cases eliminate future taxes on the net proceeds from the revaluation itself. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets after the revaluation for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds within the accounts at those banks. So you're going to want to get money out of the banks and at work in other markets as quickly as possible. And lastly, the general global shift from fiat-based to Basel III, 4, and 5 compliant commodity-backed currencies is going to create extremely volatile financial markets, and you're going to want a substantial amount of your net worth in tangible assets. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV, and then your financial banking and investment accounts post-RV, one optional gift subtrust if you intend to gift currencies to family and friends and want to manage the post-RV USD, which subtrust at any time can be converted to a standard subtrust, and 8 additional standard subtrusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But when we decided to work with Dinarians years ago, we realized that price tag was going to be unaffordable for many. So we basically back-end loaded the product, and by doing so, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. There are several ways you can pay for that. Pay us up front, discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. That's not possible. We even have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which some would reimburse our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. With this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for establishing their trust package pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your credit card would then be less than the $100 a month you'd pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies for the reasons I've stated here this afternoon. I'd like to thank you for listening to the call. I hope it's been informative. We're going to go to the Q&A in a moment, but before we do, and again for the benefit of our newer callers, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you may want to seriously consider allowing us to assist you. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the revaluation of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in this area, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have been working together for a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning, and it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so they have lost control of their assets and their affairs. In point of fact, it's just the reverse. It's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them. And invariably, it's at precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through family and friends things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are, of course, investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in reality, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of your package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV as we understand them. Again, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to the call. I'm going to the Q&A in just a moment. If you are interested in the things we've had to say, you might want to get our initial package, so have a pen and paper ready. You're under absolutely no obligation whatsoever by receiving this package, although it does contain everything you need if you should decide to proceed and establish a trust. There's a lot of information about us, about trusts, about the revaluation. You can review the information. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to answer your questions, and there will be no consultation fee. I'm going to go ahead and open the Q&A in just a moment. 2 quick rules on the Q&A. We take no service calls on the Q&A. Existing clients know how to contact us. And by the way, that reminds me, evidently there's been a lot of scuttlebutt out there about the imminent reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. And as a result, I have been swamped with calls. I probably have 25 to 30 people that I have still not been able to contact. And I'm sure the calls are going to keep coming in. Be advised, if you have not heard from me in the last 4 or 5 days, I will spend the rest of today, Thursday, and Friday on the phone, and I will contact each and every one of you that contacted me either by phone or by email. The other rule here on the Q&A is, for obvious reasons, your name and number must be on the screen in order for us to proceed. So I'm going to go ahead and open the Q&A, and I will have our contact information for those of you that may want to write this down. Okay. For those of you that might be interested, you can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD Calls and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon, with the exception of the last 2 digits. Rather than dialing 40, you'll dial 39, and then you'll use the same access code, which is 739-394-pound. If you'd like to be included on our email list, go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out periodically pre-RV, but post-RV emails may go out as often as daily. So let's go to our Q&A here. Our first caller is area code 916. That's 916. Go ahead.
Hey, Jim. It's Christopher.
Yes, Chris. How are you?
Okay. I do need to talk to you, so if you could take my number down and call me
I've already got it, Chris, and I will give you a call this afternoon.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye. Okay. That was quick. Our next caller is area code 276. That's 276. Go ahead.
Do you have any idea what the conversion rate will be to the dollar of the dinar?
Well, I have some parameters that I can work with. Now, remember, the dinar, when it was placed in the program rate, was over $3. So there's no reason to believe that it will not approach $3 either immediately or shortly after it's reinstated. Now, if it's reinstated in country, it's got to be worth, I would imagine, something close to $1, because they don't want to be utilizing the U.S. dollar as reserve currency. They want to use their own currency, and they want to stop the use of the U.S. dollar because they don't want any of them to get filtered to Iran. So we're probably looking at anywhere initially from a premium over a U.S. dollar to a value over $3, but if it does come out at a premium over $1, it'll probably move rather quickly to $3. That's my best guesstimate based on, the other thing I would mention is that the dinar and the surrounding nations are $3 to each of their dinar, and those countries collectively do not have the known natural resources of Iraq, so it would make no sense with Basel III compliance for the dinar not relatively quickly to be back north of $3.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir. Our next caller is area 312. It's got to be left.
Yes, good morning. Good morning. It
yes,
is
sir.
Les. How you doing, Jim?
Okay. Now what are
Great.
you going to stump me with today?
Oh, it's a simple question. Simple. I'm just tired of hearing these people say it, but there is someone saying on one of the other calls about, and they're not trust people, they're just gurus. So they're saying if you put more than $50 million into your trust, that the excess above the $50 million will be taxed. Is that correct?
Well, what they're saying is that anything under $50 million will not be taxed. So I've got to classify all of those folks as tinfoil hat people. All right, now. So here's the issue. What I'm really saying is no one knows for sure what the IRS is going to do. I've said it before. 988.2 refers to the gain as cap gain. Section 643B says the gain, if it's within an irrevocable trust, is tax deferred. But Supreme Court versus Caterpillar 1978 says that the IRS can unilaterally, on a de facto basis, reinterpret a statute, so that puts us at ground zero. We're just going to have to find out what happens. I would never, as a professional, tell you that something is not a taxable event if I don't know that for a fact. Because if I'm wrong, you get hurt, and then I get hurt, both financially and legally.
Right. So irrevocable trust makes it tax deferred if that is what the end result is.
If the IRS honors Section 643B of the code,
right.
The currencies, if they honor their code, the exchange outside of a trust is cap gain. The exchange within a trust is tax deferred. But again, we tried to get a private letter ruling to confirm this. The IRS declined. They said they're waiting on the Treasury Department, and we will not hear from them to the revow. That's why I've said repeatedly I want to see a revow early in a quarter, which will give us time to compel the IRS to tell us what the hell's going on.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Okay, take care of
it. You too.
Our next caller is area code 919. That's 919. Go ahead.
Hi. I have a question. I'm calling from North Carolina.
Yes.
I have been told or heard over, regard one of the gurus or whatever, that the exchanges for them has to be done before April 12th. Do you know anything about that?
I give up with these guys. Every day there's something that they're throwing out there. This is the only thing I can say about the gurus. They've been in a 5-day window for 5 years. Okay, I can't pay any attention to those guys. They're not licensed, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know that they're professionals. They contradict each other. 99% of what they've predicted thus far has not come to pass. So I just have better things to do with my time than listen to those guys.
Okay, and they're also every week. It's interesting that right before the weekend, every week the RV is intimate. It's like it's ready
I know.
to
That's
go
what
to the bank.
Right. I know. It's. I don't listen. First I listened to them. Then one day I asked my wife, said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just going to listen to this guy." My wife is not into this stuff. She listened, and after 10 minutes she said, "Jim, this guy's an idiot." I said, "I know." So then we started paying people to listen for us and take notes. But then we said, why are we paying people to write this gobbledygook down? I just don't want to have anything to do with them. And sometimes people call me a guru, and I take exception. I'm not a guru, okay? I'm a trust guy. that's been involved with exchanges in the past, and I'm only sharing with you my own personal experience. I'm not making stuff up.
Okay, those were my questions. Thank you so much, and I'll hopefully look to you to keep us straight on what to do and when to actually go.
I'm not the Oracle of Delphi, but I will do my absolute best to give you the best information that I can confirm, not that I suspect.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yes,
that
ma'am.
was my question.
All right. Bye-bye. Okay, our next caller is area 405. That's 405. Go ahead.
Hello, Jim. This is Doug.
Yes, Doug.
I had the same opinion when I heard the results of the Mueller finding that perhaps the concentrated effort of the administration could move to other issues. So hopefully that does happen. But my question, based on the information that you gave out today, is all about the CBI. You had mentioned that they were collecting the 000 currencies 97 to 98%. If in fact
in country. Excuse me,
yes,
in country. Yeah.
Yes, and if in fact that is still the currency of trade in the nation, would 2% of the currency be sufficient for them to carry on everyday trade?
They're using other currencies.
Oh, I got you.
That's why I'm saying they want to stop the use of the U.S. dollar when they reinstitute. That's why I also said it's got to come at near or perhaps even at a premium for the dollar, at a premium over the dollar to ensure that they take their dollars and get the dinar.
So they're collecting the 000 currencies to eliminate as much currency in country so that when it revalues, can you imagine?
Well, they don't. What they don't want is that currency to leave the country, because if you're an Iraqi national, the 3 zeros just don't exist. If I walk in with the newer currency or a provisional currency, the 3 zeros don't exist as an Iraqi national. That's not you and me. You and I invested in Iraq on the promise that those 3 zeros would be recognized when they revalue.
Right. Okay. Their opinion or their time frame for May 1st. Do you have any idea why they picked that, or is it just that they're giving them some time to?
I have no idea. That a lot of what they do tends to be arbitrary. It tends to be tentative, and it tends to be prolonged. So that's why I said they're telling me 30 days. I'm telling you 60.
Okay. All right. Last issue. It seems that the focus of, at least from our perspective, has now shifted from a governmental formation issue to the CBI taking the lead on when this might, and if and when this might happen. Do you see any? Do you see any contradiction to that, or that the government will step back in and the CBI be pushed back to a secondary position as far as leading?
Obviously, if you've had currencies for any length of time, you know that could happen. But the CBI has been pretty emphatic where we are at this point. And the last time that it was alleged that the U.S. Treasury stopped their attempt to reinstitute ISIS, even though they were virtually decimated, still existed. Since then, ISIS, the caliphate, is gone. It's completely gone. Right. So that was one of the issues. And, of course, the issue with the collection of the 3 zeros in country, has been going on nonstop. The scenario is a little bit different. Of course, Iran is still a problem. But there's 2 points of view. One point of view is we don't want the currency to reval, because then they don't need to try to pilfer the U.S. dollar. They can just get a hold of the Iraqi dinar. The other argument is, but when they revalue, that means all of the other world nations can come in there and help rebuild their infrastructure and their electric grid, which takes them off of the dependence of Iran, which takes Iran's influence away. So, those are geopolitical issues. They do overlap, and those are going to take some time. But, when Iraq's ready to, when it's time for the baby to come, it's time for the baby to come,
Well, I believe it was in February that there was an intent or an intention, but to revalue, but it was stopped by the NSA. Is that correct?
That's my understanding as well, and the reason was they were concerned about two things. They were concerned about the Revolutionary Guard and some of the Iranian armed militias in Iraq fomenting violence, and the other issue had to do with Iranian influence with certain government officials, and there were rumors that what Iran was going to do was flood Iraq with counterfeit dinar in order to just destroy their currency. And I suspect that that's one of the reasons why they had this new currency developed, which is very difficult to counterfeit, and why under the CBI currency law, they're saying anyone that even attempts to disseminate currency, it didn't matter if you produce it. If you're in possession of it and you disseminate it, you're going to jail for a long time. So, once again, I think this has to do with fraudulent, corrupt officials, but I also think it has to do with threats from Iran.
Okay. A clarification. You said that be in possession of the new currency. Now, the currency that we have, I mean, that is hard to counterfeit. Now,
possession of the counterfeit currency, not the new currency.
Okay, the new currency, is that the currency that we've been purchasing that you know of, like the 25K notes and things of that nature?
No, we're purchasing the 30 provisional currency.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there is a newer currency out?
Well, they're printing new currency, and it will not have the 3 zeros. But if you're an Iraqi national, whether you walk into a bank with a new bill or whether the old provisional 3 zeros, they're going to be treated as though the 3 zeros aren't there. So that both the provisional currency and the new currency will be worth the same thing.
I got you. 25K note will be worth 25 of the new ones, and that may or may not be somewhere near the value of a U.S. dollar.
Exactly. A 25,000 provisional note will be worth the same as a $25 note. Dinar note in country.
Got it. In country.
All right.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
Certainly.
Have a good day.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye. Our next caller is area code 407. That's 407. Go ahead.
Hello. I have a question regarding trust and taxable.
Okay.
Well, let's say that I take money out of the principal balance of the trust. The money's already there. It's been exchanged.
Yes. Well, you could certainly do that if you want.
A $3 million home, or is
You're breaking up. Let me try to answer that question as I understand it. Let's say that you do your exchange and you have $5 million in that account now as a result of the exchange.
Yes.
If Section 643B of the Internal Revenue Code holds and that money is tax deferred, that means that the income generated, if it remains in the trust, will be taxed to the trust. If the income generated is distributed to you, you will pay the tax on it. Now, if 643B does in fact hold, I would not want to withdraw any of the principal unless it was absolutely necessary, because you will then have to pay a tax on that money because the tax was deferred so long as the principal remained in trust.
Okay. So would you suggest that, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Would you suggest that when I'm doing the exchange to maybe just take out all the money that I think I'm going to burn, in a new house, a new boat, a new car, and put that under my name and the rest leave it on the trust? Will you suggest that? Maybe just put everything else on the savings?
My personal thing would be to try to not spend any of that money and let some of the interest accrue, because that's the only thing that's going to be taxable. The other thing I would do initially, in order to, because if it's a 50% tax, you're better off borrowing as much as you can and paying it later on the interest and dividends you earn, and let that 100 cents on a dollar be invested. Now, these are issues that are going to be discussed in much more detail post-RV when you're sitting there with your trust account and your money in the account. And again, assuming that the IRS honors 643B of the code and the money in that trust is tax deferred, then a lot of options can be presented, and one of them, of course, would be borrow money. I mean, you could use the trust as collateral to borrow money, and, okay, you're paying 10% interest, but that's better than paying 50% tax by taking the money out of the trust.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure I understand it. Do you think the bankers are going to really advise us well once we're sitting in front of them? I mean, I feel like like you said, we need to do this pre-RV.
Well, the bank's advice, I can tell you every bank's advice, leave your money in our bank. That's going to be their advice. It doesn't have anything to do with taxes or politics or reinvestment or any of that. They are gatherers of capital, which they then use for their own purposes. So every bank, 100% of them are going to strongly recommend that you leave your money in their bank, and they're probably going to do a dog and pony show. They're going to have coffee and donuts. They're going to march you over to their asset management side of the bank, and that's what's going to happen. So just be ready.
Okay.
All right?
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Sure. Bye-bye. Okay, our next caller is area code 702. That's 702.
Hello, Jim. Hey, this is Kevin out of Arizona. How are you today?
Yes. Okay. What can I do for you?
Hey, thank you so much for taking my call. I got a question about the time it takes for the currencies to revalue. Is there a time limit that we have to go and do the exchange?
Okay. First of all, one of the things I've said on the call is not to get hysterical that you're going to miss this, because the currency has to reinstitute in country. Now it's possible, I guess, that the CBI could be in contact with the IMF and these other international organizations, and they could decide to simultaneously reinstitute and revalue globally. But if they follow the pattern, if it reinstitutes, it could take up to 30 days for the IMF to then take them out of a program rate and have that rate. Now, as to exchanges and all of that, remember, we have to consider a couple of things. The timing of the revaluation and the values. For example, let's say we had a revaluation very late in the quarter, all right? That would mean that the taxes would be due on the 15th of the next month, which would be the first month of the next quarter. Well, we have a couple of problems. Suppose the currency comes out at a low float. Well, that means that we're forced to exchange currency to pay a tax that might not even be due, because we will not have time to get the IRS to confirm what the tax implications are. So there's a lot of complicated issues that we can only resolve when it actually happens.
Okay.
I'll tell you my absolute worst fear. I'm not saying it will happen. This is my absolute worst fear. The revaluation happens the last day of a quarter. I'm giving you the worst case scenario. You have to pay your taxes 2 weeks later on the 15th of the next month. You go to the bank to do your exchange 3 days later, the second day of the month, and they try to put a 20-day hold on your money. Well, they can't. You're screwed if they do that, because you don't have the liquidity to pay the tax. And what's the penalty of the tax? 100%. So, like I said, we're going to have to wait till this actually happens, and we may have to, move quickly. We may have to develop a strategy, but we don't know what to do until it happens.
Okay. Will you be contacting us? Like, say if
we'll be having if the reinstitution or reval happens, we'll be sending out an emergency email and have an emergency call. We'll provide whatever information we can get. We're going to try to drag some IRS people or whomever we need to get a hold of to explain this.
Okay. And I noticed that it said, if the Iraqi dinar values at, say, 50 cents, and then you want to wait till it goes to $3, do you have the option to wait if you're in?
If we have the option. If let's say it goes to 50 cents, okay, and it's the middle of the quarter, and by the end of the quarter it's at 80 cents. Well, unfortunately, then the 1099 for that quarter is based on that 80 cents. And even though you believe, and you might be correct, that the 30 days later it might be $3, you still got to pay that tax, which means you're going to have to exchange currency at 80 cents that's worth $3 2 weeks later. It's just a bad, and I always say to people, if these are the kinds of things that bother you, there's only one solution: buy more currency.
Right. Right. Thank you. And then the other question would be, Iraq has come out with a digital currency now called the e-dinar.
Yes.
What are our options, or how is that going to mess us up?
Well, for our exchange, it will have no effect on us. What will happen is basically, it's a quantitative easing issue. The federal government basically is purchasing the currency for whatever the stated rate is. They destroy that currency, and it's digitally reported. The IRS digitally, the Treasury Department digitally possesses that currency, and then they utilize that currency based on the arrangement they made with Iraq in order, the liberation arrangement the United States and the coalition nations have with Iraq. So that's what, believe me, whatever we make, they're going to make more on it, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time and your expertise.
Sure.
And you have a wonderful day. Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye. Okay, we have another caller here. This is area code 301. That's 301. Go ahead.
How you doing, Jim?
Okay.
I just have a couple of questions.
All right.
Okay. I know we're going to have you're supposed to have like a little get together.
Seminar, post-RV seminar, right.
Seminar. Okay. Now, I don't know if this will get you in trouble, or you can make any advice on that as far as banking. Do you have any recommendations of the best bank to
we have absolutely no idea what banks are going to be. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to try to do. And I've said this.
Okay.
One of the advantages we have is that currency theoretically cannot revalue globally until it reinstitutes in country.
Right.
So let's say the reinstitution happened tomorrow. I would be on the phone the next day. I would already have a long list of banks I was calling. I would identify myself as with Trusts Unlimited. I would say that we have thousands of clients that have substantial amounts of currency. I want to know the best deal you can arrange for our people. See, once it reinstitutes, then I have something to negotiate. But until it reinstitutes, all the bankers are going to do is roll their eyes. So I can go in there and then find out what banks are available, what deals we have, and hopefully what I'm hoping we can do is be able to say, if you walk into that bank and you can present a Trusts Unlimited trust, then you will be eligible for whatever deal that we've worked out for our clients. But again, you know the drill. The day before the RV, you're an idiot. The day after the RV, you're a genius. So that's just where we are.
Okay. All right. Now, as far as trust appointments, at the seminar, would you have any trustees or any trust protectors at that seminar? Because I know originally I'm a have a trustee.
Right.
But let's say if I want to get additional trustees that may be more experienced in doing trustee,
there should not. The trustee need not be some sort of an expert. You will, for example, if you want to set up investment accounts, you will go to the expert for investment accounts. If you want to purchase real estate, you have a real. So if you look at the trust as your alter ego, you're just going to go about your business the way you ordinarily will. It's just that the assets will be titled to the trust. Now, we will walk through, hypothetically, various things. As I said, we'll have all our people there. They're going to provide good foundational information for you. You're not required to work with them. You can work with them if you want, or you can get your own people. The reason for the seminar is to help people learn how to manage and fund their trust, and then give them some baseline information in these other areas.
Okay. All righty. Okay, that's I guess that's about it. That's what I was kind of interested in, to see if you had more qualified people in those areas. Because I know, as far as the trust, one of the big key aspects of a trust is having a very competent
our attorneys will be there to answer any questions you or the trustees will have on the day-to-day management, and we'll give you some very good suggestions on how to cut corners and make things very easy.
Okay, great. Okay, well, I guess that'd probably be it then. Thanks.
Okay, take care, William. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Well, that was our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. Actually, these calls are taking longer and longer because we're getting a lot more questions, and I think people are feeling, and I think rightly so, that we're getting a little closer to the reinstitution of the dinar. Those of you that find the things that we said here compelling, I hope you will contact us to get our initial package. Again, you're under absolutely no obligation by receiving the package, although it does include everything you need if you make the decision to proceed and establish a trust. You can review the package. Contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. Our next call is scheduled, of course, for next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get an emergency email out and schedule an emergency conference call. Failing that, again, we'll be back next Wednesday. So have a great week, everyone, and bye-bye.